For millennia, the land known as Palestine has stood at the crossroads of civilizations, faiths, and empires. A land where olive trees stretch their roots deep into the soil, carrying with them stories of endurance, and where the call to prayer and the ringing of church bells once rose together into the same sky. The story of Palestine stretches back thousands of years. From the ancient Canaanites to the kingdoms of Israel and Judah, to Roman, Byzantine, and later Islamic rule, Palestine has always been a mosaic of peoples and cultures. Under the Ottoman Empire, which ruled for centuries, Palestinians, Muslims, Christians, and Jews alike lived within a diverse and interwoven society, bound by land, faith, and tradition. Palestine's identity is written not just in history books, but in the aroma of Musakan, the embroidery of the thobe, and the poetry of Mahmoud Darwish. Its culture is alive in the steadfast hospitality of its people, in the vibrant folk dances of the Dabki, and in its enduring traditions of storytelling, music, and art. It is a culture of resilience, where even food and music have become acts of remembrance and resistance. But the 20th century would alter this land forever. Following the collapse of the Ottoman Empire after World War I, Britain assumed control of Palestine under the British Mandate. In 1917, the Balfour Declaration pledged support for a Jewish homeland in Palestine, sowing the seeds of conflict. Decades later, in 1947, the United Nations proposed partition, dividing Palestine into two states. For Palestinians, this was not a promise of peace, but the beginning of catastrophe. In 1948, the Nakba, Arabic for the catastrophe, became a defining moment. More than 700,000 Palestinians were uprooted from their homes, their villages razed or depopulated. Families carried only what they could hold, fleeing to refugee camps in Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and beyond. Generations grew up displaced, with keys to homes they could never return to, and memories passed down as sacred inheritance. The Nakba was not merely a moment in history, it was the tearing of a people from their homeland, the beginning of a struggle that continues to this day. Yet in displacement, Palestinians carried their culture with them. In refugee camps, thobes continued to be stitched, dabki was danced, and the flavors of Palestine were kept alive in kitchens across the Middle East and the world. The diaspora became both the exile and the voice of Palestine, reminding the world that this was a people who refused to be forgotten. The decades that followed were marked by wars, uprisings known as intifadas, and fleeting hopes of peace through accords and negotiations. The Oslo Accords of the 1990s promised the possibility of a two-state solution, yet settlements expanded, borders hardened, and the dream grew more distant. Today, Palestinians continue to live under occupation in the West Bank, under blockade in Gaza, and in exile abroad. The reality is one of checkpoints, walls, and restrictions, but also one of defiance, endurance, and the unyielding belief in liberation. The present-day conflict remains one of the most polarizing and intractable in the world. Escalations bring devastation, with civilians bearing the heaviest burdens. International powers issue statements, peace talks begin and collapse, and cycles of violence repeat. Yet, through it all, Palestinians continue to assert their right to exist, to live with freedom, and to preserve their culture against erasure. Palestine is not only a place on the map, it is the taste of za'atar on warm bread, the olive harvest under the Mediterranean sun, and the poetry that carries a nation's soul. It is a people who, despite exile, dispossession, and occupation, continue to declare, "We are still here." The story of Palestine is one of deep roots and enduring spirit. To understand its past is to recognize its present and perhaps to imagine a more just future. For in the land of olive trees and ancient stones, the struggle is not just for territory, it is for memory, identity, and the right to belong.